So look at Exodus, and it's about the tribe. It's about Jacob and his sons, who became Israel. Yeah, there was a Jewess out there that said Ashur, the king of Mesopotamia, Ashur, or Awsur, was the son of Jacob. Well, that's a completely different one. Okay, it's Asher, not Ashur. Okay, when in bondage in Egypt, the Egyptians decided to take their woman, the Israelite woman, as wives and outbreed. Okay, create more Egyptians, so there's less Israelites or Hebrews. And the Pharaoh appointed evil governors over them in order to enslave them through their professions, and made them build towns like prison cells. Yeah, what's his name? Zawi Hawass, the infamous supposed historian, Egyptian historian, etc. Did a documentary saying the Jews or the Israelites or whatever were never slaves in Egypt, blah blah blah, and he showed like these houses built for them, right, where they worked and ate, slept, whatever, right? And then they had these medical doctors in the ditches or whatever they're doing this work, monument for a recently passed pharaoh, etc. They weren't slaves there, they were volunteers. Either they did it or they got taxed. Okay, so here it says they were made by these evil overlords to build towns like prison cells for the pharaoh or the king, for Pithom and Ramses. It's probably for those particular cities at that time. But no matter how they enslaved them, they still increased and thrived, and they were really bothered by the children of Israel. Okay, but Egypt, everyone says, oh, Egypt doesn't have any record of it. Okay, maybe they decided not to have it. Right, they told a different story, but here's the original Aramaic Scriptures from 800 BCE. Scribes that copied it by hand in Eashoa around 800 BCE. That says what happened, what actually happened, right? So it continues, and it comes down to Moses, and he kills an overseer. He's found out, so he runs into the desert to get away. Well, naturally people fear for their life, right? So he takes off, and he shepherds the herds of Jethro, his king priest, and he fetched him sheep for the altar. And he came to the mountain of God at Kuriv, and there appeared to him the angel of the Lord, messenger of the Lord, through the waves of fire from inside the sun disk. Okay, it wasn't a burning bush, as you find in your Americanized modern English Bible versions, or the Jewish ones. The angel of the Lord through the waves of fire from inside the sun disk. So you've got to understand that in Moses' days, he didn't know what the heck this thing was, right? So if he actually wrote these, or someone else wrote this, right, on this about this account of Moses and what he saw, because possibly orally it was passed on, right? Passed down through the house of Israel, that this is what Moses saw. He saw not a burning bush. Talk to a burning bush, because a bush will burn and it'll burn up, won't it? Show me a bush that burns and doesn't burn up. Okay. Here it says, the angel of the Lord through the waves of fire from inside the sun disk. So Moses is seeing something he can't quite understand what the hell it is, right? So he can't really describe it. So he'd look around in a hurry and go, well, okay, it looked like a chariot, had wheels, etc., etc. Yeah. He can't say, well, I saw a UFO and inside were 3 green aliens from the planet Nanu, right? Okay. So, the waves of fire from inside the sun disk, and he saw that the sun disk itself did not burn up. And Moses said, let me see, this must be indeed a great vision, or I'm hallucinating. That is why the disk is not burning up. And the Lord saw that he was approaching to look closer, and so God called him from inside the disk. So he's actually inside this disk. Yeah. And he said, Moses, and Moses said, behold, it is I. And he said to him, do not come near, take off your sandals, because the land that you stand on is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, i.e. his ancestors. And Moses, take note of this, and Moses hid himself from the faces. So he saw more than one. Probably saw 3, right? That he saw, because he was afraid to look at God. Because, as Scripture says, if you look upon God and all his holiness, his purity, etc., you will die. Okay. So Moses was afraid to look at God. So he saw these 3 faces inside the sun disk. So it could be some sort of craft, right? Yeah. It's not like a shield and they're standing on top of it and the flames are coming out. They're actually inside it, according to these scriptures translated into the nearest English equivalent. Yeah. So he saw these faces. Later on we found that it might be another translation of this, or maybe Victor Alexander hinted at it, that there he realized the triune, that there were 3 as one, right? The Father, the Son, and the Spirit. If we could find it again, we'd bring it to you as evidence that we'd seen it, right? And the Lord said, I have indeed seen the slavery of my people in Egypt, and I have heard the agonies of the enslavement, because I know what ails them, etc. Okay, and now, behold, the agony of the children of Israel has reached me, because they're overworked, being beaten or treated like dirt, all that sort of stuff by these evil overlords. So he says, I'll send you to the Pharaoh, or the king. Pharaoh is Greek, right, which means house of. So he's not sending him to a house of, he's sending him to this king. And take my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said to God, who am I to go to the Pharaoh, or the king, and bring out the children of Israel out of Egypt? I'm just one man. Come on, man. And God said to him, I will be with you, and this is a sign that I am sending you. When you conduct the exodus, or the liberation of the nation from Egypt, you shall work here before God on this mountain. Okay. And God said to him, I will be with you, and this is a sign that I am sending you, Moses, when you conduct the exodus of the nation of Egypt, etc., etc. And Moses said to God, yeah, but look, as I go to the children of Israel, house of Israel, and say to them, the Lord God of your ancestors, Jacob, Abraham, etc., has sent me over to you, and they tell me, or they ask him, what's his name? What's your God's name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, He Ashur, Ashur, He there's a footnote there, indication. And he said, this is what you, Moses, will say to the children of Israel, those in bondage in Egypt. He has sent me over to you. And again God said to Moses, this is what you shall tell the children of Israel, that the Lord God of your ancestors sent me over to you, I sent you, Moses, to them. This is his name to the end of the universe. And this is how you shall commemorate me from this century to the end of all the centuries. The end of time, right? So that's his name that they were to use. Ahia, Ashur, Ahia, right? And he tells them other things to do. And here is the meaning of, in the footnotes, of Ahia. 3:14, literal Aramaic. 1. Ahia, the one who comes and is coming, the absolute sense of the one who comes. 2. Ashur, the beginning spark. That was the Assyrian or Ashurai name of God, for God. Right? Many kings like Ashurbanipal used that title, but they didn't claim themselves to be God, or a god, or descendant of the gods, like the Romans did. Ashur, the beginning spark that kindles the fire, or the light. 3. He is coming. 4. here and here are related forms of the same word. They mean more than the coming. They also signify the eternal presence, the ever-present and never ceasing intent of the comer to come. In the same way, Asher signifies the uncreated creator who creates everything from nothing. 6. Also, Asher signifies above the flames. And this is what this represents. This is Elohim, Elohim. And it's actually talking about Eashoa Mashiach. If you have a look at, we'll go back to Genesis. Genesis 2. Okay, here we go. If you compare, see here it says at the beginning, Son of God creates heavens and the earth. And in footnotes, it's basically saying, compare this to John 1:1. In the beginning of creation there was a manifestation, and that manifestation was with God, and God was the embodiment of that manifestation. So this is that which was not revealed, yet it was revealed. Okay, and that revelation, or that revealing, was with God. It's talking about Eashoa Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah, who is God incarnate, right? Dwelt amongst men. So they're one and the same, the embodiment. God is the embodiment of that manifestation. 1 John 1:2, this was in the beginning with God. If you define the word with, it means alongside, near, a companion of, close to, etc. Everything was within his power, otherwise nothing would ever exist. So he had that authority to create. Through him there was life. John 1:4 continued, and life became the spark of humanity. And that ensuing fire lights the darkness, and darkness does not overshadow it. So if we go back to Exodus, in this explanation of Ahia, Asher Ahia, or Hia, it's talking about Christ, Son of God, who is God. The beginning spark that kindles the fire or the light. Spark of humanity, that ensuing fire that lights the darkness, and the darkness does not overshadow it. It's talking about Eashoa Mashiach, or the Christ. And Moses goes on. Moses says, I can't speak too well, Lord, I'm a bit of a stutterer, had a speech impediment. So he ends up getting Aaron, his brother, to speak for him. Yeah, and the Lord's anger was aroused because he keeps arguing with him, making excuses. And he said to him, look, your brother Aaron is a Levite. I know him to be a good speaker or orator. Behold, take notice, he will also meet you on the way, and shall see you and be glad in his heart. In the footnotes, literal Aramaic idiomatic figure of speech. Speakingly, he speaks, or he makes speeches. That's exactly how it is when translated. Like in the language, say for example in the Maori language, if you ask the question in Te Reo or the Maori language, what is your name? In English, it'll be something like why toku ingoa, which when translated would mean what your name. And of course you've got to correct it so you don't go what your name to someone who speaks English and I think, what, this guy's a dumbass, you can't speak properly. You'd say, what is your name? Yeah. Correcting that, right? Grammatically. Okay, so moving along. So that's how he's translated it directly from what it actually says in that particular language. Okay, so that verifies the triune, 3 in 1, 3 is 1, and Christ. Okay, here's the Aramaic Bible Translation Project proposal by Victor N. Alexander, copyrighted between 1997 and 2014. Introduction. The following are excerpts from a project proposal that he made 2 years ago, well, he made in 1995. before he commenced the translation of the New Testament. He hopes they will shed some light on his approach and qualifications for the work that appears on the site. Statement of significance and impact of project, and he talks about that there. Narrative description. And the purpose of this project, or his project, was to translate the Bible from the original Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke. In its present translations, the Bible contains thousands of verses which do not rhyme or maintain any appreciable poetic structure, whereas the original Aramaic version is a masterfully written and poetically beautiful work. Besides consideration of style, there are the extensive passages in the present English language and so forth that are translated so poorly from an idiomatic standpoint that the scholar, let alone the layman, can hardly understand them, and so forth. You can freeze this video, pause this video, and have a look at it at your leisure, so you get a full understanding of this translation project by Victor N. Alexander. Oh, Victor N. Alexander has expertise in translating. Okay, he speaks Aramaic, native language, Arabic, Persian, and Norwegian, because his wife's Norwegian, right? He's fluent only in English and Aramaic. He has a profound interest in dialects of various languages. He understands cultural perspectives through extensive travels and have studied anthropology at the university through elective courses. And he was a graduate of the San Francisco Film Academy in the USA. He states here, his interest in translating the Bible from Aramaic started out a long time ago. However, he was not aware of the lack of an authentic translation until his wife, I think her name's Libby. No, actually, no, might be wrong there. Liv, sorry about that, Mr. Vic. Until his wife prodded him into studying certain specific passages in books she was interested in. Originally, he was interested in the religious heritage of the Ashurit people, being a descendant of a very small ethnic minority, the Ashurit. He began reading the Bible to corroborate some of the historical books being written about Mesopotamia and the cultures that emerged from that land. He discovered that the Bible contains certain strange and unintelligible passages. At first he was not very concerned about these, because like most people he considered the Bible as a strictly religious book, esoteric in scope, and somehow the domain of religious people, a sort of private phenomenon that needs not be the concern of the man on the street, the everyday Joe. However, a revival of Christianity and the proliferation of religious programming on television are a growing phenomenon of recent years, and they have begun to show their effects on the secular world of the average American. Furthermore, religious groups and institutions now are fielding their own political candidates for office, etc., etc. After he studied the Bible and compared texts between different versions, it suddenly dawned on him that there really was no competent translation. He searched some more. As unbelievable as it seemed, it was true. Then he thought, surely, who am I, a layman, ordinary person, everyday man, to even think of translating the Bible? Did he truly have the competence to do justice to the job? He looked around him and talked to many experts, scholars and clergy, like he's talked to, what's that guy's name? James D. Franciscus, apparently. Francisco? Well, he says he has. Francisco. Not too sure about anyone else that he spoke to. he came to the conclusion that he is probably one of the rarest of translators who had the most extensive and powerful understanding of both the languages of the Scriptures and modern American English. Yes, he does understand Aramaic to a profound level. He went to an Aramaic language school. It was a Presbyterian church school. The two teachers were both from Urmia, Iran, where the Aramaic language scholarship was the dominant force in Ashurit cultural life, and where most of our best, or their best literary people came from. He studied religion and language from the first grade in the language Jesus spoke, Galilean Aramaic. He continued his education at an American Jesuit high school. From the time he was 12, entering the 7th grade, he studied religion with Father Merrick. Wasn't Father Merrick from what's that movie where her head spins around? Linda Blair, The Exorcist. Yeah. I'm sure his name was Father Merrick. But anyway, let's not be silly now. He studied religion with Father Merrick. He got an A in the course based on his presenting a final assignment on the proof of the existence of God. He studied Latin at Regiopolis College in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, during his 11th grade. Later, he completed his high school in San Francisco in 1962. He entered college and finally graduated in 1970 from the San Francisco State University with a BA in filmmaking. So, aside from his interest in world literature, he studied American literature extensively. From the early 60s, as an 18-year-old, he began to write and kept a journal. In 1967, he began his first novel. He had taken many writing and literature courses. He had recently published a book on his knowledge and experiences in the film industry, because apparently his great-grandfather may have been a director of, as we found on a blog, it mentioned that his grandfather was the first director of the CIA, and then he left and he went and did Bollywood, those Hollywood silent movies, and got quite known for that. So that's probably what interested him, right? Passed down that interest to him. So he became a filmmaker and graduated. He's made many documentaries about Mesopotamian artifacts in the museums in London and Paris, the British Museum and the Louvre, respectively. His knowledge and expertise in American English is extensive. He brings a great deal more to the job as a translator, but this for now is sufficient with respect to an overview of his competence in the two languages. The original texts of the Bible are strangely enough available in print. The Christian world does not know that they are the originals, because almost no one can read and understand them or even discern their authenticity, since the original language is dormant. It's dead. No one uses it anymore. So he wasn't affected by the controversy as to which is the oldest found version of the Bible at all, as he's dealing with the original Aramaic idioms, transliterating the verses and maintaining true idiomatic readings, as well as Aramaic poetic construction. His main concern is recovering the original meanings of the passages and restoring the apostolic faith, especially the words that Jesus spoke. Authoritative texts are freely available and shall be used for comparisons, such as the 1611 King James Version, the Standard American Bible, the Concordance, the New American Version Bible, the St. Thomas Edition, the New International Version, and so on, including the Greek and Latin version as well. His interest was primarily in translating the Aramaic into American English, since Jesus' words are the most important from the perspective of what Christianity and the Christian Bible are all about. Dealing with errors is a very sensitive issue when it comes to the Bible. He intended to provide extensive and ample footnotes whenever his translation corrects an outright error. However, if the passage or word in question is acceptable but poorly translated, then he merely gave a better idiomatic translation. However, he would use extensive notes on the translation in the foreword to the Bible, to the chapters, the books of chapters or whatever. There are no serious problems posed by the translation, except for the fact that some of the concepts that have been embraced by certain denominations have created major obstacles to a clear understanding of the Bible. Only careful comparative study of his translation against all other translations, including the Greek original, can lead to a clear understanding of the true words of Jesus Christ in the Holy Bible. The introduction and annotations to the translation would deal with the main reasons why a new translation is essential, namely that Jesus Christ spoke Aramaic and that the idioms and the poetic elegance of his words have never been properly translated before. There will be ample annotations to identify various passages in Aramaic, both in literal and idiomatic translations, and Victor and Alexander would clarify all relevant details and differences between his translation and other translations. So when we came across his website, had a bit of a chuckle about his theory of the Aborigines, thought, oh, some youngster putting a prank trying to get attention. But then later on we found out that we looked at further pages of his down website, va.com, which we recently erected, and we wrote an email to him and said chuckle, and realised after that, oh my gosh, it's his website. And from there we've been communicating him over the last 3 or 4 years maybe, and found that he's a very lovely older man, and he doesn't get all angry when you question certain things. He just clearly explains it to you. He may say, well, you've got a funny way of looking at Jesus Christ because he is God, okay? And then we found that through reading further into his translations, these verifications there, that he is indeed God. He's a manifestation of God, okay? God incarnate, revealed to man, because obviously man knew of God, but he couldn't look at God, right? He never seen God. Okay. So when Moses, they say that Moses saw God in the Eastern mindset, not saying that he actually looked at God, because of the scripture in Exodus where he says he was too afraid. He knew it was God, but he was too afraid to look on the face of God, yeah, because he knew if he did look at God in all his glory, in his true form, he'd die. Yeah? So Moses hid himself from the faces that he saw because he was afraid to look at God. So what it's saying here is the triune. So anyone out there says, oh no, the triune's rubbish, it's all rubbish. Okay, here it is in the original manuscripts. The faces, that means there's 2 or more, 3 faces that Moses saw because he was afraid to look at God. He saw them in the flying disc, which didn't burn up. It's not a bush. Yeah. Here is the original manuscripts, translated in English by a native-born Aramaic speaking translator, Victor N. Alexander, and it says the disc is not burning up. It's not saying the bush is not burning up. Okay, and the Rastafarians out there that say, oh, it's a ganja bush. You know, when you burn ganja, it doesn't burn up. A load of rubbish. Yeah, this is what it says in those original manuscripts, in those original scriptures, in the original language. The disc did not burn up. Yeah. The angel of the Lord, or a messenger of the Lord, through the waves of fire from inside the sun disc, and Moses saw that the sun disc itself did not burn up, and he saw 3 faces. So that verifies the triune. Okay. This is what he saw. Literal Aramaic idiom, retained. Visions or manifestations. Okay. Revealing. They were revealings, right? These are the revealings that Moses saw. He saw those 3 manifestations.